Welcome back to a different style video, where we travel, but it's less of a travel guide and more of an adventure through history. Today, I want to take you on a journey into the large coal and oil-fueled iron beasts that helped shape and tame these wild and vast mountains to what they are today. We will be traveling from modern to old train projects, networks, and effects to get just one piece of coal worth of an entire hopper of history in this video. I'm very excited to make this and see what everybody thinks. It is a video I'll hopefully turn into an entire series of historic ventures. So join me today to explore the mighty and modern Union Station in Denver, the Colorado Train Museum in Golden, a pit stop for a historic tale in Bailey, and finally, a look into a current project trying to bring life back to a once hectic and busy valley, which was a keystone stop for the Southern Colorado rail history. Let's jump on in! At the most northern light rail station from Denver, 124th and Eastlake. All right, behind me is Denver's current light rail system, and we're at the most northern point of the light rail system at 124th station. So let's take this train down to the historic Union Station. In the heart of Denver. Let's go around front and check out the sights. We have made it to Union Station. This is originally made in 1880, but in the early 1900s there was a pretty big fire and they actually had to rebuild it in 1914. Whoa. Had to fact check myself here. The station was rebuilt, but in 1914 it was redesigned to its current stature to accommodate more travelers to the area. Let's get back to it. And on the front of the building here, you can see 1880 and 1914, kind of signifying that rebuild and that fire. And then in the early 2000s, it did get another kind of major restoration as well. So during that fire, there actually used to be right behind me a massive clock tower that spanned way above the building, but unfortunately, it's no longer here. But this place is full of history, and it's actually a really cool thing to check out and kind of explore while you're downtown here. So let's head on in and show you the inside. This modern station within an old shell is a major stopping spot for anyone traveling through Denver today, just like it was 100 years ago. The grounds of the station still act as a major transport hub, with most light rail lines taking you outside of Denver, starting and ending here in a major bus station below ground. This is also a major stop for Amtrak to take you throughout the United States. This station acted as a key to the West for much of the passenger rail travel in the late 1800s and early 1900s, with hordes of tourists seeking the untamed beauty of the western United States, prospectors wanting to luck out and strike it rich with that lucky golden nugget, or people looking for a new home where they heard a lot of new opportunities awaited. Without this mighty station, Denver may not even be close to the city it is today. The peak of travelers coming through this station was in the 1940s and 50s, where the station would warmly or coldly welcome 50,000 or more new people a day. But all in all, today it is well worth at least walking through and checking out this grand station. Now that we have ridden on and explored some of today's railroads in Colorado, let's start our journey through the past. About 20 to 30 minutes down the highway from Union Station, heading into Golden, Colorado, is the Colorado Railroad Museum, housing a large collection of engines and cars that helped conquer this wild land. And welcome to Golden, Colorado. So right behind me is actually one of the most famous or most photographed trains out there. This used to run in California, Colorado, and I think it was Chicago, but did a ton of trips. And This thing has been featured in a lot of documentaries and pictures and whatever, just with this famous color scheme and all that. Well, yeah, as you can see, that 5771, look out for like pictures of just this in general and that number up top. This thing is huge. But welcome to the next stop on our historic trip today, and we are in the Colorado Train Museum. But I have about 5 minutes before that train loads up. I just got here, so let's get over there right now.
Whoa! Barely made it on. Let's talk about some of the history stored here as we take a couple laps around the museum. Overall, it offers an array of railroad history, with a good-sized collection of railroad memorabilia, cars, and engines throughout the decades. Some of the major points of interest here include a library, small train ride loop that we are currently on, roundhouse with a turntable, and quite a bit more. Now let's jump into some of the stories this place can tell, starting off with this little but interesting engine right here. More specifically known as the M&PP number 1, because I know everybody here knows exactly what that means. It's actually a very important piece to the state's history that joined the museum fleet in 1979, fresh off the cold and windy Pikes Peak. Well, maybe not fresh off the peaks, because this specific locomotive had been retired at about 1938. These trains are extremely unique because they are built for a cog railway, which allows it to travel up much steeper grades than a traditional engine. The Pikes Peak Railway is one of only a few in the United States currently operating today. What makes this train special, there is a large cog in the middle of the train that helps drive the train up the tracks. Instead of the power coming from the wheels, it's coming from a huge gear that walks itself up the tracks. But we can go much more in depth about this on another video. One other unique locomotive that was essential to kick-starting this area of the Rockies are the two we are passing right now. These are another unique style steam engine that can handle significantly higher grades than most for working in the steep areas of the mountains. They are all-wheel drive, which means every wheel is under power, and were mainly used for transporting materials to and from hard-to-reach mines and lumber areas, essential to supplying goods and raw resources to the towns below in the valleys, which then spread these resources across the entire country. Let's finish up the ride and take a look into the roundhouse, where a steam engine is being prepped for a special event in the coming weeks. Let's check out a couple cars and trains on the way down, like this old sleeper car for workers on a train to get some shut-eye on those long journeys, an old postal car that you can even take a look inside, and a whole bunch more to see. I'll leave the rest for you to explore when you visit. The opposite side of the museum from where you load up for the train ride is where the turntable and roundhouse is located. This is where active restorations and maintenance happen on the large collection here. The staff do a great job at keeping these metal beasts alive and working for visitors to enjoy for hopefully the foreseeable future. It's about that time we keep chugging through history and make a pit stop for some grub and see how this little itty-bitty mountain town in Colorado has had an effect on the overall train history here. Welcome to Bailey, Colorado! With all of this walking and exploring, it's time to get a quick brunch at the Throat Café in downtown Bailey, where I picked up a big old pancake, crispy breakfast sausage, and a little bit of homemade chili. Everything was tasty and everyone inside was very nice. Just across the street is a small historic district where we will check in on the ground about how this area had a pretty significant impact on how fresh foods made this long journey through this part of the country.
As we continue this trip on, we are still in Bailey, just a little hop, skip, and a jump from lunch. It's a little historical park, but this land we stand on, plus across the river here, there's some hiking trails back in those woods that were donated by the McGraw family. And overall, it's pretty interesting. You got caboose right here. You got an old schoolhouse from the 1800s. You got a pair of cabins from the area-ish, kind of, from the 1800s as well. And then back here is a shed. I don't think the shed is as old, is super old. They built it to protect the equipment within the shed. So there is an old goods wagon and a lot of equipment and tools from when ice was a big industry for like cooling rail cars, or used as even air conditioning way back before we had the current AC we have today. And then if you look between the schoolhouse And this cabin here, that is actually another artifact from the ice lakes. Most of the ice during that era for Denver actually came out of this area here, just over near Fairplay. They've made a couple dams and a couple lakes in that valley. And once the ice got to exactly 2 feet thick, they would scrape it all away. They would score it with this thing right here, and they would start chopping it up into blocks and ship it on out. And during that time, this was huge because this was what allowed refrigerator cars to transport veggies and meats all over the place to keep them cool while they had their ride. Because before that, veggies and meats and stuff, or mainly veggies, it would basically be more local. There wasn't that cool air in cars to keep the items fresh for longer periods of time. But to cap this little area off, this town is called Bailey because one of the original settlers in this little valley here, their last name was Bailey, but they had sold their land to the McGrawls, which eventually allowed this park to happen. So let's keep on trucking along here on this little history adventure.
The history journey continues into Como Depot, located at the mouth of Voorhees Pass. Well, that's at least how I think you pronounce that. That takes you up and over some of the mighty Rocky Mountains. The historical society that is currently restoring this property has a couple open houses a year to welcome the public to see the progress of the grounds. There are many projects going on at once here, so let's take a look inside and walk through this fascinating project. The Roadhouse we are currently exploring was built in 1881 as the main maintenance depot for the section of the railroad. This was built as the hub to link many of the towns west deeper into the Rockies, going through a major mining boom for the time. There were a few major railroad companies fighting over these areas to have access, transporting all of this material being pulled from these mountains. We can dive deeper into this in another video. This rail line was built and operated by a smaller company called South Park and Pacific Railroad for the start of its life. This little boomtown did not last super long. It was about 60 years-ish because in 1939, this train depot was shut down and left abandoned. Today, the restorations are chugging along at a steady pace, with a good amount of exterior and interior of the roundhouse complete and in use. It has once again become the main maintenance shed for the cars and steam engines on site. A focal point of these is Klondike Kate number 4, as the engine is now known, is currently having a full restoration and will become a focal point of the complex once finished. The name comes from its past, where it started its life in the Klondikes, hauling gold ore during the gold rush. Afterwards, it was moved around for various other purposes through the decades, which has led to the locomotive's current location here at the historic Como Depot. Just outside the roundhouse is an operational turntable. This allows the operators to pull any rail cars, engines, or equipment off the mainline tracks into the garages behind us. What an awesome but simple piece of engineering here. The views from this area are just breathtaking. It is easy to just get lost in it all. But let's continue north towards the original train station and hotel. On our way up, we need to take a pit stop at a group of volunteers rebuilding some of the track on one of the switches. Hopefully soon, these tracks will be in use once again. Our next little stopping point is Como's train station, which has had its restoration just about fully complete. Let's head inside and check in on the ground.
As you can see, we are inside the station. And this is really cool. It's really cool just being out here. It's like you're in the absolute middle of like nowhere. It's so cool. And we got a pretty nasty storm out yonder, so the wind is howling right now. But here we are. And so far, this is so cool. It feels like I'm just walking through a ghost town. And overall, I'm pretty stoked. This is really neat, just seeing like an active current project being restored and seeing that side, not everything pretty and nice and good to go, seeing kind of like the work they have to put into it before it gets pretty and nice, and what it looked like before or as it's kind of getting there. And there's tons of artifacts in here. This is actually really neat. So I'm just going to do a quick tour of it. I'm going to let the narration take back over. It's windy today. So alrighty. Let's keep on going on this historic adventure.
Today, the old station is acting as a small museum, showing off some of the artifacts found on and around the property, including books, blueprints, and some of the buildings, and a lot more. This building is well worth the walkthrough. That's plenty of this train station. Let's move on to the final and most recent acquisition to the property. The old hotel. It is in the very beginning stages of the complete restoration and rebuild of the building, with hopes of using it again so people can come and stay within these historic grounds. The hotel switched between hands numerous times for varied uses, with its last predominant use being a restaurant and hotel for an extended period of time until it was sold in 2008. I guess it is time to wrap this little historic day trip up. If you enjoyed these places and video, please go and visit all of them, or just at least just one, to check them out yourself. It is so cool to just explore, learn, and feel the history. This was a lot of fun and one of my favorite travel style trips this year. If you are still here, please let me know if you want more of these history style travel guide trips. They do not have to be just about trains either. I've got a couple ideas for at least a few more of these. Leave a like and a comment below if you would like more. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.
Look at this. This building, or at least this whole spot here, is being held up by literal just tree timbers. Now that's cool. You don't see that often at all. That is so cool. That I don't know why. That's just, this thing is, no way.